Resident Evil 1 is a game loved by all, and believe it or not, the game had many assets that never ended up making it into the original game. So with that being said, here's every scrapped asset in Resident Evil 1. The Gelzer was a prototype character scrapped from the game. Early in the story development, the cast were to be cyborgs. When a different writer was brought in to write the script, the futuristic aspect was dropped and Gelzer made redundant into the script, ultimately being removed completely from the game's code by August 1995. Gelzer was planned to be the STARS unit's heavy weapons specialist, relating to his gorilla-like physique. He was a hardened war veteran that lost his right eye in combat, later replacing it with an ocular implant with an infrared scope. At one point in the game, Gelzer was to hold up the mansion's ceiling trap to save the protagonist, who would then search for a button to deactivate it. In the finished game, Barry would instead break the door down to rescue Jill. The flamethrower fuel was a scrapped item from the game. It would appear that the flamethrower used in the game was to be usable for much longer than it ultimately did. The flamethrower fuel is also in Resident Evil 1.5 and Resident Evil 2 trial version, though its coding is unused in the game. Like the Dum Dum rounds, flamethrower fuel is accessible with a cheat device or via data editing in the early releases of Resident Evil 1. The Dum Dum bullet was an item planned to be used in the game. While the expanding bullet failed to make it into the game, the avatar was later reused for the Magnum ammunition. It was to be used with the Colt Python. In early versions of the game, the ammunition can be found with the aid of editing data values or using a cheat device. The altered rounds did less damage than the standard rounds against many BOWs, but increased damage to zombies and some bosses. In all future versions of the game, attempting to spawn these rounds in inventory slots always fails, and creating a Magnum preloaded with them instead loads the new Beretta from the Resident Evil Director's Cut. The Dum Dum bullet is an informal name for an expanding bullet, a projectile designed to expand on impact to increase its damage. Dewey was a scrapped character for the game. A tall, dark man, Dewey was intended to be an unlockable character to serve as comic relief, comparable to Tofu's role in Resident Evil 2. He shares his name with STARS member Edward Dewey. He was to be featured in early builds of Biohazard, popularly known as Biohazard Coop. His inventory avatar, along with Jill, Chris, and Gelzer from Biohazard Coop inventory textures, are all left over in the early samples of Biohazard. The laser was a weapon which existed in the prototype versions of the 2002 Resident Evil Remake. It was not actually intended to be in the release game, instead serving as a means of testing certain particle effects. The official website showed footage of the laser weapon being fired, with reminders it was not in the game. In the trial edition, it uses the flamethrower as its placeholder. The pickaxe was an item that was ultimately removed from the final cut of the original Resident Evil. The intended usage of this object is unknown, and its avatar isn't available in the game's coding. Early internet message boards providing game hints and tips suggested that the pickaxe was an obtainable item, used to pry open a welded door by the fountain in the courtyard after the underground tunnels area, allowing the player access to the helipad, bypassing the laboratory altogether. The red-haired man was a character scrapped along with the additional parts of Trevor's diary, which can be found in the demo version of Resident Evil. He was intended to be one of the researchers working for Oswald E. Spencer. The red-haired man was first seen on the 17th of November 1967 by Trevor, along with two other men in lab coats talking with Spencer. When Trevor accidentally made some noise, the red-haired man noticed him but didn't say anything and quickly returned his attention to Spencer. The Sea Snake was a rejected design for an enemy to be encountered in the 1996 Resident Evil. Its general appearance is similar to the Gulp Worm of Resident Evil Code Veronica. Trevor's memoirs are a special set of notes that were cut from the original Resident Evil shortly before its release. The original text was featured in Biohazard, the true story behind Biohazard. It was later rewritten for the 2002 remake as Trevor's diary. Wood is a key item which failed to make it into the original Resident Evil. A sprite of 3 wooden logs can be found in the coding for the Biohazard Trial Edition. However, its examination name was the Windcrest, suggesting that this might have been a wooden item used to substitute for the item in a puzzle.